Well, let's get your notes up from your last session. While I'm finding them, why don't you tell me how you've been the past week? Okay. And that issue you mentioned before. Oh, good. So you've made some progress. Excellent. Let me see. Ah, here we are. Okay, so last time we focused on that. We discussed potential different personality types. Okay. How would you feel about doing a little test today? Nothing strenuous. It would just involve you looking at some images, and it's going to give you potentially a little bit of an insight into your personality. Fantastic. Let me just get things prepared. Okay. I have... No, that's the ink blots. Ah, there we go, the Szondi test. Have you ever completed a Szondi test before? No? Okay, good. Have you ever heard of it? No? It was developed in 1935, if I can remember correctly, by a Hungarian psychiatrist, and it's a very good test to explore the deepest regressed impulses. It sounds a little bit complex, but it's quite interesting. Okay. Let me just get my notes on this specific test. Here we go. Okay, so just in brief, the aim is to explore, as I said, the deepest repressed impulses of a person on the basis of sympathy or aversion caused by the specific photos that I'm going to show you. The Szondi test is based on the general notion that the characteristics that bother us in others are those that caused aversion to ourselves at an early stage of our life, and that's why we repress them. So, before we begin, I think it's important to discuss some terms just so you're aware fully of their meaning. And that's not me being insulting at all. I just think sometimes all of us, including myself, need to be made aware fully of what something can mean. Absolutely. So, repression. According to the psychoanalytic concept, this is the most psychological defense mechanism we have. Its most important function is to transfer thoughts and desires we are comfortable with to our unconscious. Okay? Next we have denial. Now I'm sure you're aware of this concept, but this is a mental process by which we absolutely refuse our deepest impulses, the things we want, adopting the exact opposite pattern of desired behaviour. Then we have sublimation, which is the process of transfer of our repressed choices, states or behaviours to the ones that are socially acceptable or useful, such as artistic activities, hobbies, professional choices, or harmless little habits. Okay, now the test itself is very, very simple actually. It just requires you to look at the image I'm going to show you of 8 different people. Now, the original test involved many more people. I think there was something around 30 people, but we've narrowed it down to 8. Okay, so these all represent obviously different things. So I can explain these in full. And excuse the quality of the image. Obviously these are very old images, and whilst computers can make the graphics look slightly better, they are quite weathered, as it were. So we have 8 images here, as you can see. We have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Now, the idea of this is that I need you to really say out of your gut instinct which of these you would hate to come across in a dark alley. Okay, so imagine it's late at night. Which one of these would you really not like to see? So I'll just move this a little bit closer. So image 1, which is a man with rounded glasses and a short haircut. Image 2 is a man, again with a short haircut and quite prominent lips. Number 3 is a man with slightly darker skin tone, a short haircut and quite dark features. Number 4 is a woman with quite a stern look on her face, with one hand raised to her head. Number 5 again is quite a sullen looking woman with an updo hairstyle and quite heavy eyes. Number 6 again is a woman, again with some kind of short hairstyle and very darkened eyes and quite a sad look to her face. Number 7 is a man with a beard and short haircut. And number 8 is quite a youthful face, a man with quite a short haircut again, and quite prominent, quite almost feminine features. So would you like to pick a number? Okay. Right. Now for the real interesting bit. So, as I mentioned before, each of these have different interpretations of what they really mean. Now, what you selected, shall we go into that first? Okay, I am going to talk through all of them though. I am. So, what did you pick? Here we go. So, epileptic. So, repression. When we talk about personality disorders associated with brain disease, damage and dysfunction, as occurs in some cases of epilepsy, some of the diagnostic features can be impulsiveness, irritability, the outbursts of anger and aggression. If this stout gentleman with a round head caused revulsion and fear in you, it is likely early in your childhood you repressed some of such feelings and behaviours to your subconscious. and denial, it is most likely that you're a kind and peaceful person. Being meek and friendly, you give the impression of a responsible and self-controlled person. You are stable in your feelings and easily bond with people, ideas, and objects. So let's discuss that for a moment. How do you feel about that result? Okay. And how does that make you feel? Of course. Well, I think if we really look, especially some of the characteristic traits that were mentioned, so being friendly, kind, stable in your feelings, easily bond with people, ideas and objects, I think that's definitely you. So what's really bothering you then? Yes. Okay, let's draw back to that then. So, impulsiveness, irritability, and outbursts of anger and aggression. When we spoke in our last session, we did discuss the potential outbursts. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, personality has many different sides, and it's quite possible to live in a personality type where, you have anger and, complete sense of chill, Yes. We're very complex as humans. We are. Tests like this really are interesting because they almost just cut out all the waffle, to put it quite simply. So all of the lengthy explanations, and it just takes it down to its core, and what these images represent essentially are just different characteristics. Okay, so I would say that what you went with there, that gut instinct, is quite telling, and a lot of the characteristics that are listed I would definitely enlist you with. But the good thing about that is, and I'm going to make a particular note about this, is the fact that we can now begin to work on the issues like anger and aggression, and also tackle things like the impulsiveness and irritability. So actually that's a really healthy exercise to recognise some parts of yourself that perhaps you've hidden away, and yet now by bringing them to the forefront we can really try to work through those. Absolutely. I know that you may not perhaps see the point in it, but if you are leaning towards anyone else here, then I think it may be interesting to you to discuss the other images. Of course. So let's start then with number 1. So number 1 is the sadist. So you are likely to have repressed some experiences from the first years of life associated with authoritism in your behaviour, a need to dominate, and a propensity for bad intentions. If you choose the portrait of this teacher, you may have repressed some offensive or demeaning other behaviours in your unconscious. You are likely to be completely harmless and very peaceful creature, always ready to help others. If you are an office worker, your superiors may find it difficult to handle you. When you do not want to do something, you create barriers. For example, getting late to work or showing that you're in a bad mood. Often, when you have to defend yourself and choose passive resistance and defiance, which in the long term exhausts those who create problems for you. So this one's particularly interesting. Let's just remind ourselves again of these images. So here is who you chose, and we're discussing number 1 at the moment. So let's pick up on a couple of the things there. So, creating barriers. Now, I would say that when I was looking at these images, I did lean towards potentially number 1 for you, just to do with the barriers thing, because that is something that we had mentioned. Yes. No, and you know, I appreciate that, and I think you've done a lot of work to move through those. Absolutely. Okay, let's discuss then number 3. Let's remind ourselves of the image. So number 3, just here. So, just for fun, what do you think number 3 would reveal? Okay. No, I just like to get people's impressions. That's all. So, repression in this catatonic picture. Some features of this mental disorder is the excessive stimulation of imagination and cognition in general and negativism. If this unshaven but smiling gentleman caused negative feelings in you, you may have repressed some hyperactivity of your mind, which could make you lose touch with reality if it had not been transferred to your unconscious. Denial. You tend to adopt stereotypical behaviours and you do not like innovations and changes. Maybe you're the type of timid and defiant individual who finds it particularly difficult to adapt to new situations. Your biggest fear is to lose self-control. You are a bit stiff, often defensive, and perhaps an inhibited person who never deviates from the behaviour codex. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Okay, so you see a little bit of yourself in that as well. It's not unusual for those to relate to multiple images. Definitely, it's just we like to take that first gut instinct as it tends to be the most accurate. Definitely. So let's move on to image number 4. And this represents the schizophrenic. Okay, so repression. The schizophrenic personality is characterized by intense apathy, distortions of thought, and incompatible emotions. If this impassive gaze and poker face gave you goosebumps, you probably repressed a feeling of indifference towards others and withdraw from things and events at an early stage of your childhood. Denial. You are probably quite a sociable person. You believe in socialising and communicating with others, enjoying your company and often going out. The sociability is rather misleading and perhaps hides an isolated person who lives with feelings of being always alone. Your relationships may seem impersonal and superficial, as if they lack the true feeling. Deep down, you may feel that you do not need others and coexist with them. I think so too. Well, especially with that. And I think a really important and progressive change that we can make in ourselves is by self-evaluating and recognizing that within all of us we possess these different, more negative traits, and it's just learning to work with them. Yes, I know, I couldn't agree more. I'm so proud of you, by the way. You've come so far since our first session. No, honestly, you really have. It's really, really impressive. You're welcome. So, moving on to number 5. Let's remind ourselves of number 5. So, what do you reckon? Okay. Well, yes. Let's have a look and see if you're right. So, number 5, the hysteric. Some personality traits of hysterical people are superficial and unstable emotions, narcissism and exhibitionism. If you chose this strange lady with the heavy eyelids as the person that scares you most of all, maybe it's because you have repressed an insatiable desire to captivate attention and a thirst for approval. Denial. You give the impression of a modest person with intense inwardness. However, in reality, seeming a quiet and shy person, you may be possessed of an overpowering and excessive desire to charm others. You meticulously take care of your appearance and behaviour. For example, you always try to be elegant and well-dressed, complementing your clothes with accessories that attract the attention of others. And sublimation, this one. Such people are likely to choose a rare or extravagant possession or hobby. So, how do you feel about that one? You know, it's really interesting with these because you wouldn't guess these things, would you, by simply, looking at them. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say this is you. No, I wouldn't. I feel yours resonates much more. I mean, you dress impeccably. But apart from that, okay, so let's move on to number 6. Alright, let's remind ourselves of the lovely number 6. Okay, so what do those darkened eyes mean? Number 6 is the depressive. So, this is someone with a lack of self-esteem, feelings of inferiority and guilt, which are the main symptoms of depression. The fact that this harmless being is an incarnation of aversion for you may mean that you are deeply depressed and you manage to have these symptoms though under control. Denial. Perhaps you are an outgoing and carefree person. You always show dynamism, confidence and optimism. Sometimes, of course, you get upset and can manifest melancholy or sad clown syndrome. You can also be suspicious and morose. Sublimation. It is very likely that you shift your depressive tendencies to assuming the role of everybody's psychologist, searching for solutions to other people's problems. So how do you feel about those things? Well, yes, if we just look again, so it is very likely that you shift your depressive tendencies to assuming the role of everybody's psychologist, searching for solutions to other people's problems. Myself, Well, somewhat. Myself? Well, somewhat, I suppose. I do find comfort in being able to solve other people's problems whilst going through my own. Somewhat cathartic. No, absolutely. So that brings us to number 7. Our bearded fellow. Okay, so what do we reckon? Okay. So you're quite close. So this is the maniac. Okay. So some diagnostic features of mania are extroversion, overstimulation, overestimation of self, and a waste of money and emotions. Now, if this kind of face is disgusting to you, it probably means that inside you there is a kind of excitement which is, if not controlled, would transform you into a fanatic mystic. Denial. You are very likely to be a person who does not want to provoke with her behaviour and who detests noise, extremes and excesses. You are an example of discretion, restraint and measure, being logical and thrifty. You always have to be in fully controlled form of behaviour. Well, yes. I would agree to some extent. Should we find out about the final one? Okay. So, number 8. A rather youthful looking fellow. Okay. So. The dissociative identity disorder. This kind of personality is expressed in a person's desire to live and be accepted as a member of the opposite sex. If this man seems dangerous and depraved to you, perhaps early in your childhood, you repressed an identity problem, or more specifically, a problem about your gender identity. If the defense mechanism of denial worked, you may have a tendency to apathetically confirm your biological sex. In this case, your behaviours, manners and appearance emphasise that you are a real man or a real woman. If you're a man, you are very macho, and if you're a woman, you always try to look sexy and seek to flirt and attract men. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I initially described this gentleman as having quite feminine features. So it's quite interesting that that specific one is to do with gender identity. So overall, I know that today we've, perhaps not touched on some of your very personal issues. I just wanted you to be able to explore some of these different personality types. Have you found it interesting? Good. I'm so pleased. Let's take a final look at all of them. So do you feel that you made the right choice? Definitely. Let's just go back to number 2, just see if there's anything we can go over together before we end today's session. So, right. So you are stable in your feelings. I feel that's an area we should probably pick up on. So, do you identify with that particular statement? Because I think for me, after meeting with you for a few sessions, I'm not sure that I would 100% agree with that statement. How do you feel about that? Yes. Absolutely. Of course, taking that into consideration. You have dealt with quite a lot of stress as well. I think one thing for me is because you have this impulsiveness in you and that slight level of irritability, sometimes your feelings don't seem as stable as they could be. Would you say that's a fair comment? Okay, good. Good. Well, let me pop down these test notes today. Right, let's go over the final notes from today's session. So we have completed the Szondi test. And how did you find it? Good. I agree. I think it's very interesting to learn about the different types. Definitely. And how did the test in general make you feel? Good. And if I had to ask you what you've learnt from today, what would you say? That's a very positive thing. Excellent. Of course, it's not my job to be biased, but you are one of my top patients. I'm seeing a lot of progression, a lot of working through your issues effectively. Very good progress. Now, is there anything that you want to discuss further today? Okay. Right. So, in regards to the outbursts, what I would say to you is it's all about stepping back and reevaluating. So the moment that you feel like you're going to have an emotional outburst, whether it be one of anger or upset, take a step back from the situation and picture yourself as though you are watching yourself from an outside perspective. And this will allow you not only the time but the self-thought to reevaluate whether you need to have this outburst. So this week what I want you to work on is exactly that. Okay, so the second you feel like you're going to have an outburst, step back and evaluate. And then consider, will this outburst change how you feel or rectify the situation and make it better a few hours later? Now, if this outburst is not going to change anything, is it really worth having? Because having such an outburst, whilst it can be quite cathartic and therapeutic to get out all of your emotions and feelings, it can also be quite overwhelming to the body and the mind, and it disrupts our thought patterns. So a lot of the things that we say or do during that outburst may not truly represent how we're actually feeling. It's just how we're feeling in that state of heightened emotion. Okay, so that is your homework. Alright, I want you to report back to me on that when you next come Yes, I believe you can do this, okay? But take every day as it comes. Every day is a new learning day. Alright? It's a pleasure. Would you like me to email through your results of that test for you? Yeah? Of course. You can have a little further read. It's quite interesting. Great. Well, it's been lovely seeing you today. Okay? Yes, of course, if you need to alter that appointment, you can just do that out the front. Okay. Alright, you have a lovely evening. Bye-bye now. Bye. No, you can leave that. Alright. Okay, bye-bye. Bye. Okay. So, must get the test results emailed, and also need to order a new session book. Record details on system. Make a change to new appointment time. Good, right. Ah, yes, perfect.